And we are live. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight, this is just a topic I've never talked about before, but I thought it'd be a great show. I have Sarah and Greg of Financial Coaches. They're both financial coaches, and I know they're excited to talk tonight, aren't you?
We're fired up, man.
We're very excited.
We're happy.
All very excited. All right, everybody. We'll be right back after this video. Now, Sarah, what do you think, Sarah?
That is very captivating.
Good, thank you. I knew that. I know you said I could. Greg even says, "Man, you feel like you're ready to fight."
Always ready for battle when I see that.
Yeah, when you see that. All right. Good evening, everyone. Oh, we got Joel in the house already. Good evening, financial coach people. I like that.
Thanks, Joel.
I like that. Oh God, Gerprit, you're gonna make me say your name wrong. I know she's gonna yell at me. So, and then Joel's back. He said he's watching, studying for college right now. All right. This show is, like I said, I was talking to Sarah and Greg before, is how many people just talk about money. So I thought about it all day. I was like, even like, what kind of questions and what can you do? But let's introduce yourselves and tell us what you do, and then we're going to get into all the questions.
Yeah, appreciate you having us on. We're excited to be here. We've worked in financial services now for over 7 years, and we're just excited to tell you guys about it and hopefully provide some value. But in a nutshell, we take the place of the class that everybody should have got in school, right? You know, we learned about maybe balancing checkbooks at best, but you know, when it comes to debt, retirement, where to get real interest on your savings, you know, we look at the full financial planning piece and really just want to educate people on how money can serve them better. That's what we do.
Sure. Oh my God, I love it. Sarah, I'm going to give you the first question now.
Oh no.
What if you had to say, you know, and we'll get into money about how everything, the economy is and everything like that too, but what do you say to younger people today when you start talking to them about saving money? Or do you have a financial coach? Do you know what you're doing? What is the best kind of advice that you try to tell them?
Get started now because you have time on your side. If you waited from ages 25 to 55, and let's say you did not get serious about investing until 55, you'd have to put away almost $4,000 a month to hit your $1 million goal. And a lot of people, when they figure out what they need for retirement, that million isn't even going to cut it. So start now. You have to put way less away.
Especially when they're in their 20s. I can imagine, like, everybody knows the way things are nowadays with the expense. And then what do you tell them? Like, these are questions I would be asking. I'm like, listen, well, everything's so friggin' expensive. I can't do anything. Everything I'm going to tell you is always negative. I can't do this because, I can't do this because. But what is something that you can tell him? How do you start out? What's the best thing? I mean, besides hiring yourselves, but what's the best thing about doing that? How do you even go about it?
Even if you've got to go get an extra side hustle, go get some licenses, make a little bit of extra money so that you can fund retirement. And I know retirement feels like it's 40 years out when you're 25, but it comes a lot more quickly than you think it's going to.
Geez, I wouldn't even know what to say to somebody, even my daughter. I wouldn't even know what to say. I'd be like, are you saving any money or what? You know, even Greg, I don't even know what you tell people.
Tell them, like she said, that's pretty much it. Start now. Get the education.
Get the education and all that part. What do you feel is the best advice for 401k, Roth? Can you break those down, like two different things, what they are and what do you suggest?
Yeah, so your 401k, that's something that your employer is going to offer you. And it comes with a match oftentimes. So absolutely, when we are looking at what our clients have access to,
Right.
go invest in your 401k up to the match. Get that free money because nowhere else is giving you free money.
But don't exceed it.
But then if you're eligible for Roth IRA, so you're under.
What's the difference though? What's the difference?
So 401k, that money has never been taxed, which means you get to put it away to age 59 and a half. That's the IRS's magic number. That's when you pull the money out. But when you do pull the money out at retirement, you're going to be taxed on all of it. Now,
yeah, but what you take out or only what you withdraw, right?
It's what you withdraw. So each year you'll pay taxes on that.
Then a penalty.
Well, no penalty if we wait to 59 and a half or older.
Oh, it is. Okay. I thought it was still, no, I guess, 59 and a half. I thought it was 60. Or I guess they can.
59 and a half. Yep. That is the IRS's magic age. We did not come up with that, but that is their specific age that you've got to wait to. Then the Roth, that money has already been taxed. So imagine getting your paycheck and now you decide that your paycheck has already been taxed, right? But you decide that you're going to invest a little bit of money each month and you put that away. It doesn't matter if you invested $250,000 and it grew to 1.5. You're not paying taxes on any of that money again. There's also no required minimum distribution, which happens
on a Roth.
Yep. Which happens at age 73, 74, depending on the year. And you don't have to take that money out. The other really cool thing about a Roth IRA and why we always recommend it is you can access any of the money that you've put away. It's called the principal. So you can access that prior to age 59 and a half, and you will not get penalized. Also, that money can be left to your kids tax-free.
So what's the difference then? I'm going to back that up there. So what would you tell somebody if it's a 401k? The 401k is making money because they're investing it, right? That's where it's all making their money. The Roth is not. The Roth is you're getting a set fee, right?
Nope. The Roth IRA is invested. It's almost like a vehicle. Like you could drive a Chevy or a Ford, and let's say that the 401k is a Chevy and the Roth is a Ford, but we can put the same drivers in those vehicles. So you'd have the same mutual funds or same single stock, depending on what your company offers. It's just the tax piece of it. Are we paying taxes now and not paying them again later? Or are we not going to pay them now and then we have to pay them later?
So either way, you're getting either way, like a Roth, you still have to wait till you're 59 and a half, same thing?
You're supposed to wait to 59 and a half. Yes. Because basically you've made a deal with the IRS that you're not going to spend that money. So they give you these special tax advantages. But again, with that Roth IRA, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So you can actually access every dollar you put away before age 59 and a half, but it's when you touch the gains, that's when you get taxed or penalized rather.
The gains that you're talking about, that the profit you're making?
Correct.
The growth, yeah.
The growth
that you're making, you'll get penalized if you were to withdraw. You can withdraw that stuff separately or not?
Well, you can just select how much you're withdrawing, and it's going to come from the principal piece first.
Right.
But let's say you put 50,000 in there and it grows to 75,000. Well, you could access 50,000 of it, no penalty. But as soon as you get to 51,000 or $50,001, that's where you're going to start taking money basically from the growth.
So, Greg, if you have your employer with a 401k matching your money, and a lot of people I don't think they put enough emphasis in the training of people to what they need to be learned of a 401k, because it took me a while until you realize, I never would check the envelope, never. And all of a sudden you're like, you open it up, 2 years later, you're like, whoa, you can really make some money, and then you lose it. So you can go back and forth. But what do you tell people? Do you go with the Roth, or do you do, is there a certain age limit that you would be better off going into your work 401k? You're going to make more money off of that, right?
You want to do both. You want to absolutely, if you've got a full-time job where they're offering you a 401k, you absolutely want to take advantage of that match. Now, you don't want to exceed the match, Okay. We call that overfunding a 401k.
Yeah. What is that? I don't understand. I've never heard of that. Never. Because you can put up to 10%, right?
Well, it depends. Each company is different. Some of them will say, oh, we'll match, 100% up to 5% of your pay or up to 3% or whatever it is. So when we say overfunding, we're talking about not going over what the company matches. So the company's matching, it's giving you extra money.
So then you're making that extra money. You're making that, they're going to say, we're going to match you 3%. Some companies do the 6%. I've had that before. So 6% of the money you're putting in, they're going to match. That's what you're talking about right there. They're matching that money right there. And that's the money you're going to get taxed on? Or?
So in your 401k, you're going to end up getting taxed on all of it.
The whole pot.
When you go into retirement. But with a 401k, let's say that your company does say, if you put 6%, we put 6% in.
Yeah.
Go ahead and take advantage of that, even though you're going to get taxed later on in life, because nowhere else is giving you free money. So you'd be crazy not to take that.
Can you borrow up against it? Like if you need a emergency loan, and that's where a lot of people, I think as you get older, you start thinking of this stuff. Like, can people borrow against their 401k? Or is that probably not heard of?
So, and I love that you brought this up, because that's one of the mistakes that we see that people make. And look, when you've got an emergency, you got to pull the money from somewhere if you have it.
Right.
But one of the key things that we focus on with our clients is making sure they've got an adequate emergency fund. So typically that's 3 to 6 months of income or expenses. They're usually the same, but 3 to 6 months put away for this emergency. Because what happens is when you take a 401k loan out, you've got to pay it back, and you're paying it back with interest. But that money has now been out of the market. And if you miss some of the best days in the market, that can make all the difference of what you have as your ending balance when you go to retire.
See, that makes sense, because when I took it out for my Invisalign, it had to take $8,000. I wanted to pay for it. So I took that money out of my 401k, borrowed against it, because the company would allow us. And I was trying to think, why does a company like to do that? Does it do it just as a benefit to their employee? Like, is it saying, right? Because all I had to do was then they took it out of my paycheck. But now I understand what you're saying there, because that $8,000 was not there. But is that $8,000? But is that only at what you're paying back monthly? Does that make sense? Or
can you reword that question for me?
Like if you're taking like the 8,000 that I took, okay, and you say that money's not in your system, until you pay it off, but you're only that money, that whole withdrawal is taken out on that, right?
You got it. So the whole withdrawal has been taken out. It's not earning interest from being in the market.
You got $8,000 that are working for you and building wealth.
Now, Greg, I know you can tell people what happens when you listen, what an emergency things are, but why it's not good to take out on your 401k if you don't have to.
Because it's going to penalize you, and it's going to make a huge difference in your financial independence number. It's going to make a huge difference in whether or not you can retire. We all look at, the short term. Well, I can pull 10 grand or 15 grand or whatever it is.
Right.
But when we actually map out for them and show them what it's going to do, how it's going to change their retirement, it can make the difference of if you retire or don't, let alone when you retire.
Do you see a lot of people doing that in today's market?
Unfortunately, we do.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, because I get it. Listen, I understand. Isn't there under certain circumstances you can borrow against your 401k or not, or take it out?
Yes, there are certain hardships that you can take the money out.
So when you take and so people can understand this, say you have $100,000 in there, you're taking 25,000 of it out. You're going to get penalized. Your normal, say 22% taxes, or whatever, but then you're going to get charged 10% of that money that you're taking out, right?
That's the penalty. Yep. It's another 10%.
It's not on the whole. It's only the amount that you're taking out, right?
Only the amount that you're taking out.
30-some%. That's over 30%.
It's like we say, it's like getting a 30% haircut right off of the money that you put away.
And I get it. We talked before the show, things are so different now for, I call them I'll just say the younger generation, millennials. Back in the day, you want to say you could get yourself out of work, you could find a place to live. You didn't have everything going on now, because now with the housing market, you must see all this 7-8% for a mortgage. That's got to affect every single freaking person out there trying to get a house, or even being a younger to get out of your house for that reason.
It does. It makes a difference. But interest rates won't always be high like this. We've seen this before, so history kind of repeats itself. So if somebody can get into a mortgage and they absolutely have to, keep your credit great, go get it refinance at a different lower interest rate. And so everything is temporary at this moment.
What do you, and we, again, I keep saying we talked about this prior, but, say you're in your 50s, naturally, what do you even tell people at that age? At 50, 55, you're just starting out versus when you're 20, 25. I guess you got all different kind of ages coming to you. I guess everybody has a certain plan, but what do you tell somebody that's middle age right now? What is the best? Smaller companies don't offer 401ks as many. But Greg, you said as a company, you can get 401ks for people that don't have them from their work.
So one of the things we are able to do with 401ks is to help a company that's like, hey, I want to offer a 401k.
Help the company. But an individual, you can't go out, right? There's no way, right?
So an individual isn't getting a 401k unless it's something called a solo 401k, meaning they're self-employed. They've got that option. But often there are other options for retirement that are better than that.
So is it better than the Roth to go back into the Roth versus the 401k if you don't have that then?
Well, the Roth would be one of the options that we offer a client, and that's if they're eligible for one. Again, at certain income levels, they're no longer eligible or they're phased out. Okay. But a Roth IRA is, a great option rather than a solo 401k. The fee structure is typically a little bit different. Sometimes it's more advantageous for the Roth over a 401k.
All right. So then, Greg, you said use go to company. You can set it up for a company. Because I know you work with bigger companies. You said that you work with bigger. So you can take a small business that wants to offer their employees something. You can help them do that.
Yep. There's a coffee shop down the road or something, and they say, hey, things are going good. I want to offer this as a benefit to our employees. Let's get started. We're going to look at what their goals are, what they want to do, how many employees they have, all the factors. And we're going to give them some options, and we'll make some recommendations. But yeah, we can absolutely originate that as well as move one. So if someone moves a company, like if you came and you were like, hey, I just left my full-time job. I had a 401k there. I don't know what to do with it. We're going to help them get that move
right there. So what do you tell people? That's happened to me. What I took is I put it right into the bank because I didn't know where I was going. I withdrew it, put it in an account, and then it was like 1% or something. I just waited because I didn't know when I was going to my next company what was going to happen. So then I was able to transfer that because I didn't have to pay any fees. I was able to take that and put that into the next company. So I keep going back to this, Sarah, because I'm still going to learn with this Roth. There's no difference in that, or that's probably what I put that money in, right?
Well, let's say that you had a 401k. And by the way, a lot of people go to their bank when they've got a old retirement account through their employer. Right. So let's say that you've got that 401k and there's $50,000 in there. You wouldn't necessarily want to move it to a Roth initially. Because
it has to stay there, right?
Well, because you haven't paid the taxes on those $50,000 yet.
All right.
But you could slowly move it over to a Roth IRA. And here's how that may be of a benefit. Again, if we end up paying the taxes on that $50,000, you're not going to pay the taxes again on that principal or the growth. But if we just do that in one fell swoop and we move it right over to a Roth IRA, now you've got $50,000 of additional income that year. That's likely putting you into another tax bracket. We don't want you to pay more taxes than you have to.
Taxes. So then, Greg, what do you tell people to explain about a 401k, what it means to where when you put $10,000 out of your check every year for a 401k, can you explain what happens there?
It's going to go into their retirement, and it's one of the best tools that they can take advantage of. I think the most important thing, again, is take the match, but again, not overfunding it. If the employer is going to say, hey, we're going to do 100% up to 3%, we're going to tell them, okay, don't go over that 3% because anything you do beyond that is not going to get matched. If you put in 10% of your paycheck and they're matching 3%, you have 7% of your paycheck you're putting in that they're not matching.
So what happens with that then? So you're going to lose more money, or you don't know? It could be
Well,
You're
you're not
not.
necessarily going to lose, but you're not going
Right.
to get as good of a rate of return, or you're not going to get as much of a benefit as you could, right? Because if they're matching you up to 3%, and whatever 3% of your paycheck is, let's say that that's $100 a week or $200 a week. So they're
Right.
going to match that. But then when you exceed that percentage, now you're just throwing your dollars in and they're not matching you, when there's better options that you could do with that additional money. You could put it in a Roth IRA or things like that.
Wow, that's different. I didn't even think about that. But then people don't realize too that, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you say you make $50,000 a year, 10,000 of that income that you're trying to save into a 401k, at the end of the year, you're only paying taxes on $40,000, right?
Correct.
Oh,
So
thank God I
you-
was right on that, because I've said that long enough. Because I'm thinking if that was wrong, I'm screwed. I'm like, oh my God. So that does go ahead. And so that there is a benefit to a certain tax bracket for people to look at that too, right?
There is. And again, it's kind of, how are we going to split this? Do you want the write-off now because you need that because you're getting nailed in taxes? Or do we need to just put a little bit there in order to get that match and then put the rest over into a Roth and get that tax benefit? So you don't get a write-off with the Roth, but it reflects later on down the road.
All right. So then what do you tell someone like myself for having a 14-year-old with a child that wants to go to college? So there's different programs that I believe that you can take a certain amount of money out right under a certain code to where you don't get taxed on that, the same thing.
So yes, there are certain ways that you can pull money out of there. So if somebody comes to me and they say they want to send their kid to college, love it. I love when parents want to help their kids. But
Right.
first off, I want to recommend that we've got retirement. We're actually trending to hit retirement because kids can take a loan out. And no, student loans aren't the most fun thing to take out. But you helping your child go through college shouldn't mean you can't retire.
So
Look at
I can tell you're in this business because I've heard that before, and a lot of people don't realize that. So walk us through that. So by doing that, yeah, you're right. Your benefit's gone. It's your retirement's gone. All because you think that they don't have to pay a 1% loan, right?
Well, and the loan's going to have a higher interest rate. But if we look at what the market returns, so let's say that it returns 9%
Right.
over the course of 30 years, but you don't have the money in there, you're not earning that 9%. Now you say, hey, Sarah, I'm trying to avoid my kid paying, let's say, 5 or 6% interest on their student loan. Well, they'd be better off paying that interest than to miss out, because now there's been another opportunity that's missed. Instead of earning that 9%, we were just doing that to avoid the 6%.
Not to mention, a lot of people make the mistake too. There's certain funds you can put, you can invest your money into that are specifically for your kid going to college.
Right.
The problem there is it sounds great on paper, but then when you get there, that's the only thing you can do with it. Right. So what if your kid wants to be an entrepreneur? They want to go open up a store, or they want to go into business, or whatever it is, right? They might not want to go to college. Now you've got a conflict.
Oh, I know what you're saying. I never thought of it that way. So then what happens? You could lose them. I mean, you could lose a certain amount of money. You're just going to pay all the taxes on it now.
So you don't lose the money, but if you're not using it for college traditionally, and they just changed this, but traditionally you would run into where you would get a penalty for them to take that money out. Now they allow.
Oh, that's right, because you're not even going to be of age yet. You're right. You're not even of age yet to retire. Jesus.
So now you can put that into an IRA, and that'll allow the money to be aside for your kids for their retirement. But again, if they don't leave that money alone, they're getting penalized to take it out.
Jesus. Now I get it. I was like, oh my God. You must talk to people a lot about budgets. We were talking about, like, with checking, and I asked you, I was like, God, do the younger generation even know what writing checks is about? Does the younger generation even know how to balance a checkbook? Do they even, everybody used the cash apps and all these different things. And I'm like, oh my God, like how do you even sit down? Do you have married couples reaching out to you, single people reaching out to like financial advisors?
We sit with almost anyone, right? Whether you're, a single person or you've got a family with a bunch of kids, that's probably where we make the biggest difference. We sit with business owners and we just come up with a plan. We figure out where they're at and where they want to go. And we help connect the dots.
Just to get there, to make them financially set. What do you talk about about other things we're bringing up about, the importance of life insurance? And I told you my story, how my parents made sure I had a life insurance policy when I was younger. There's different types of life insurances to where there's whole insurance, and it's whole insurance, and
So
the other one,
there's
what's that?
term and whole life. That's the biggest kinds. And then there's also group life, which is what you'd have through your employer, which there's a lot of shortfalls and opportunities for improvement there. We meet with a lot of people that have all different kinds, right? And part of it is just, how does this work? I'm doing the right thing. I got a policy, and that's great. Absolutely commend people for putting something in place, right? That's an extremely important piece of your financial plan, is protecting your most valuable asset, which we say is your ability to make income, right?
Right.
You got a family, John and Mary, husband and wife. John passes away. Guess what? The income stops coming in, but the bills don't stop coming in, right?
Right.
Protecting your income is the purpose of life insurance.
I think everybody's today protection is just, let's have what do you call that thing on Facebook where it's like, oh my God, you turn around. Go fund me. I'm like,
insurance policy.
I'm sorry, I'm going to take heat for this, but I just feel that you should have life insurance. You're just going to pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it, you're not. I feel that should be just in your DNA, that you need to have that there, because you said it right. You have your children, you have your wife, your husband, Lord forbid, they're gone. You should have at least 2 to 3 years, I would say, comfortable to live after that. Because the price I pay, I know nobody's going to get at my age now, I always say, but do you recommend a whole when you're younger? Do you recommend policies like that versus, I hate going back and forth on age, but that seems to have a lot to do with it.
Well, it does. And to the first point you just brought up, being in this business now for 7 years, we've seen clients either not get a policy in place and then pass away. Unfortunately, right. We've seen that. We've sat with people who didn't want to get a policy and they passed away. And that's the tragic reality of the things that we see. We've also seen people get policies in place and then cancel them and pass away. And that's another tragedy that it's unfortunate we come across those things. So getting in place is the most important thing. But when it comes to which one to have, most of the time for most families, a whole life policy is not appropriate. There are some circumstances where it is appropriate, but most of the time for most middle-class families, a term policy is far cheaper and they're going to have astronomically more coverage. Now, what's appealing about this idea of a whole life policy, and now they're spun as all these different things. They're called IULs. You hear this,
because you're making money, right? You're taking.
Yeah. And it sounds great, right? A lot of the agents are saying, hey, look, you can have a savings component that you can access and you're going to have coverage, which sounds great. And there's all this new hype about be your own banker and all this stuff. And it's heartbreaking because it is not. It's all sizzle, no steak. It is not.
So what's the purpose of a whole? What is, like, I know I have my term and we have another 2 terms. Now I know 2 wholes with Liberty Mutual. I know we have that. But I don't even know what the purpose of it is for. It's because what? You can take more money. You have more money, like you can borrow against something again. You're still going to pay taxes, right, Sarah? It's the same thing, right?
So the loan. All right. So This is how a cash value policy works. And that's your whole life, universal life, index, universal life. Part of it's life insurance.
Right.
Part of it is a savings or an investment component.
Okay. Savings.
The company just marries it together. So the idea is, hey, you're going to die one day. You need insurance your entire life. It's how it's sold. But while you are living, maybe you'll need that money. You might have an emergency. You could take the money out.
It's just the same thing.
And it's a tax-free loan. The problem is the return within the savings piece is not very high. And when we figure out the math, clients always make out better by having a term policy, but then investing what we call the difference. Because like I was mentioning earlier, they are far more expensive.
And there's some shortfalls that are really disturbing too. When you start this policy up for the first 2 to 5 years, sometimes you don't have anything going into the savings account. And we always ask people, you wouldn't go to a bank and put money in, and for the first few years, nothing goes in, right? No. Also, if you're going to borrow the money out of this savings account, you usually are going to pay it back in the form of a loan, and you're paying interest on it. Well, that interest goes to the insurance company. Why would you pay someone else interest on money you borrowed? It's your money, right? It's silly. There's so many shortfalls. And the worst one is when you die, the cash value dies with you. if I had a whole life policy and I passed away, she would not get the life insurance policy and the savings. It doesn't work that way. The insurance company keeps it.
I'll be talking to you later on about that, because I'm going to be saying to myself, what the hell did I get myself into with that? I know what you're saying, though. It's
out of the thousands of people that are going to watch this, there's going to be, statistically, there will be one or two that actually have a policy that does pay out. It's extremely rare and it's extremely expensive, but it does exist. So before somebody lights me up in the comments and says that, but 99% of the time, people believe it works that way, that they get both, and it does not. And it's gut wrenching to find.
But rest assured, your life insurance is tax free. Still, it's one of the items that are still tax free, right?
Right.
For now, if they ever change that, wow, that would be what a change that would like bring back, because there's not much more, right, besides inheritance tax that you pay taxes, right?
You do.
I believe in inheritance. So with having a life insurance. Now, what happens when you have all that 401k and your significant other passes? No, it's naturally left to them. Like, it's left to them. So does that make it just goes the same thing as that person ages? It can't be taken out to a certain age?
Well, there are certain instances where you could actually have access to that money. But again, if someone has a 401k and their significant other is not listed as the beneficiary, it goes to the beneficiary. So that's why it's so important to have all of your beneficiaries up to date. Even if you think your beneficiaries are up to date, it's good to check on that stuff once a year just to make sure, because that would be kind of devastating to the spouse if you had a parent or a sibling. Let's say you set that 401k up before you got married and it's going somewhere else where it was not necessarily intended to go.
That's what I mean, because when you take that and people don't know until you pass, whether or not you might even have it for your work that people don't know. Wow, you just missed out. And that's why I have a thing to where all my policies, I've learned it from when my mother had planned, to her end of life. And wow, did she just do it right? We didn't have to worry for the will. And we're going to talk about that too. Every single thing was just right there, written out. You didn't have to go through papers and go through, because I'm sure stuff gets missed. I'm sure it's got to happen, for that. So what do you tell? Is there any difference that you tell somebody, again, younger generation, older generation, when it comes to life insurance? That's never too late. That's never. The expense is going to be higher, right? I mean, definitely.
So the only problem there lies as it might be too late, because if you develop a health issue, especially with a term policy, if you develop a catastrophic health issue or had a health event, you may no longer be eligible
or to be
for
extremely
life insurance.
Expensive.
Because like I told you, even though I only pay $30, right here it is, only $30 every 3 months. If I was to take that now, it would cost me $800 a month just to have it at my age. I'm like, what the hell just happened here? I'm like, why would I want to go out and spend $800 a month for life insurance? That's a lot of friggin' money.
It is.
It is. And one of the many reasons that we believe term is far superior is, say someone gets life insurance when they're 25, before they potentially develop any health issues, right? And they're younger. Right. So it's going to be very cheap. And it's going to cover them for exactly what it says, a term, a point of time. 20, 30, 40 years, right? Whatever it is that you get it for. But think about this. If you're getting coverage to pay for your final expenses, maybe pay off a mortgage, after you're, in your 60s, your kids are grown and your mortgage is paid off, why do you need a life insurance policy? You should have personal savings. You should have retirement. Your house should be paid off. Your debt should be lower. Your kids should be out. Why are you still paying for a life insurance policy, right? Because life insurance, we look at it like you're renting a pile of money until you own a pile of money.
Because they keep asking me, am I satisfied with my plan? I'm like, I'm still alive. Why do you ask that? Like, are you happy with, I'm sure I'm great. I'm still alive, but I know what say that again, what you just said, because I get what you're saying. So when I turn 70 some, I shouldn't have to worry about dying to give that money away when I can use the money, right?
Right. When you're older, right, in your 50s, 60s, 70s, your debt should be paid down. You don't have much debt. When you're younger, you've got young kids to take care of. Your responsibilities are higher. You've got a debt, probably a mortgage, right? But then when you're older, if we've done a good job, our kids are out of the house, right? Our house is paid down, if not paid off. We've got money saved up. So if we have a policy for $100,000 or $150,000, but we've built up a savings in our retirement, why are we still paying for life insurance? The point is
That's
to have the money, but if we've built the money, why are we renting the pile of money? We now own a pile of money, right?
No, I didn't think of it that way. I know what you're saying there. So you handle, so if anybody needs life insurance, anything like that, you can take care of them. They can.
Absolutely.
We do. And you brought up a will. I don't know if you're going to bring that up again, but
we're going to talk about that. Yeah, right now. Because like I said, my mother had everything, and my mom was still alive, but she had everything. Just the will. What a mess is if you don't,
absolutely.
That I can't even imagine, because everything was all worked out. But wow, you learn about money and what people, when somebody passes, it's like, you got to be kidding me. What'd you just say? That's when everybody comes out. But how do you still see middle-aged, older without wills?
Absolutely.
We do. And unfortunately we lost Sarah's mother, and she didn't have a will, and we're still dealing with figuring out, her vehicle and her assets. And we see this stuff all the time if someone doesn't have a will. And typically people think a will costs them hundreds of dollars and it's going to take all this time. And, I'll give you a shameless plug. We help our clients get it done if they do it right. It costs about $38. And it's done by an attorney. It's not done by a guy in the back of a truck with a trench coat. It's done through
right. I know.
And you can get it done for so cheap, and it gives you peace of mind. In a lot of states are what's called a probate state. And a lot of people don't know this. Pennsylvania is a probate state. Okay. And what that means is if you don't have your final wishes written down, documented in your will, right, then the courthouse has one for you. So say we didn't have a will. We have 3 kids and we passed away. The courthouse decides where our kids go, right? No matter what family members we would have wanted that raise their hand and they're qualified and they want to take them, the courthouse decides. That's a terrifying thought as a parent. Yes. When it's so cheap and easy to get it in place. It's a non-negotiable, in my opinion. You've got to have a will. And I love that you said that, you understand the importance of seeing it.
Again, Sarah, then you're talking about all that we've just been talking about, from the 401k, from the life insurance policies. God knows all the bills. Like when my mom, for some reason, I didn't have to worry about with Medicare and all that stuff. I didn't have to, she owed a lot of money, but I didn't have to worry about that. But even all those final things, like something happens to a family, what happens to the life insurance money then? So the courts decide, right? That comes down to it.
Well, there would be a beneficiary listed on the life insurance policy.
Okay.
But here's kind of a scary piece of the puzzle too, is that your beneficiary needs to come forward. So if they didn't know there was a life insurance policy, even though the company might get wind of, hey, this person passed away, doesn't necessarily mean the insurance company is going to the beneficiary to pay out. They're waiting for the beneficiary to come.
They're waiting on top of that. So, wow. Then you're talking. So I know I've asked a lot of questions tonight too, but people can come to yourselves and you would sit down, just give them a complete plan, sit down with them. I know that I like that financial coach. I like that name. That's, because like you said, all these things together, it individually it's something, but when you compile them all, I can't even imagine all that. Nope, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's one of the biggest things that we see, right? And I think the plan is so important because you may have a mortgage through your bank. You've got your 401k through your work. You've got credit cards from another company. And we don't really typically see how all of that works together. That's what we do. We figure out all the pieces of the puzzle, how the debt affects you being able to become wealthy, how your investments are operating. Are they doing well for you? Are there better options out there? So we're looking at all the pieces of the puzzle.
And I like that you said coach, and I like that you emphasized the word coach because, I would encourage people to think of it like this. It's not like man, I suck with money or I'm stupid, I need help. No, like if you're making $100,000 a year at your job, that's pretty good, right? But if your boss came and offered you 110, would you turn it down because 100 is good? No, you'd take more. Why not just do better? It doesn't mean you're doing bad. The best NBA players in the world, the best golfers, whatever, the best athletes have a coach, right? Or a mentor or a guide. And I think it's important to have someone in your corner that's looking at things and they're not emotionally attached to the money, looking at it from a professional
and
way.
That makes total sense when you say it like that. Joel says, is it judgment free, Sarah?
It is judgment free. We only judge you.
We only judge Joel.
Joel. Okay, now I get it. I thought it was like, because I was going to bring in the next part I want to hit is the everybody's favorite, and that is your credit report. That's got to affect a lot. Am I wrong? I mean, or
I'm
not
glad
so
you brought
much. What's that?
Well, credit only matters if you're going into debt, right? Now I'm not saying like you should just let your credit score go on the wayside, right? But
Right.
credit matters when you're going to go into debt. So, of course, if you're looking to buy a home, buy a car, whatever, right? But when you're doing the right things and you're getting out of debt, part of what we help our clients do is what we call debt stack, and we get them out of debt more efficiently. Your credit's going to come up as a byproduct of that, right? And I don't want to be ruthless here, but it makes me laugh when I see all these people. They're like, "Oh, pay us all kinds of money. We're going to coach you to improve your credit." I'm like, just get out of debt and do the right things. Your credit's going to come up on the back end. Why?
Right.
Why do you need to pay someone to help you fix your credit and dive into it? If you're doing the right things, it's going to be a result of it. It's inevitable.
But Sarah, I know you're going to say get another job and pay it down, right? Sarah's going to say get another. No, but you made sense when you said that before, because expense and debt has got to affect every single thing that we talked about tonight.
Absolutely.
It all comes around to the same thing. If you don't have the money, if I come to you and say, "Hey, Sarah, me and my wife are coming to see you, and we're $85,000 to $100,000 in debt. We need life insurance. We don't have a will. We don't have a financial coach or planner. What do I do?" So, do you give them advice of do you want to try to get them out of debt first, besides doing all this, or how does that even work? If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I have found over the years, and this was even us years ago, thinking, well, let's put everything on pause until we get out of debt because we're drowning in this.
Right.
So non-negotiable life insurance first, because we do not get a do-over on that. And then we just talked about developing health issues, may even be ineligible, and getting that will in place. And then I'm going to work with my clients to make sure they have an emergency fund. Because let's say that we take all the extra money and we throw it at a credit card,
right,
and the emergency arises. So what do? Now we're swiping the credit card again.
Or we're doing all those things and one of the spouses passes away, but you didn't have any life insurance. So now all that work you've done investing money, it's going to get sucked dry. So you have to do it in the right order. You
must have to just take that down, because if not, for that reason right there. Right. Because one person leaves, now all of a sudden all that debt ain't going anywhere. If you're married, it's not going anywhere. So what do you tell? Do you say that's got to be a hard, I guess, and you're used to it, but that's your job to tell us how we're wrong or what we need to do, or you got to give some advice too. I mean, it's got to be like, hey, listen, this is just a plan, but there is something at the end that can help.
Well, we don't tell people they're wrong.
Yeah. Right.
But you don't rip the Band-Aid off. You're wrong.
I know you won't see. You'll word it differently, though. You got to word that. You must have to word that differently, because that's a serious, like even talking about tonight, I think my blood pressure's up. You still got to talk about it. And I think that's what it is, the conversation that people don't want to have. Oh, I'm not worried about that. I don't care if I die. I'm going to be dead. No, you're not.
It is. It's a conversation, rather than tell someone you've got the wrong life insurance. I'd rather show you, hey, do you understand how your policy works? Did anyone ever explain the difference to you of a group life policy, having one at work versus term versus whole life? Did anyone ever show you the difference? Okay, I'm going to show you the difference, and you're going to come to the conclusion what's best for you, right?
Yeah, when you're doing that. And I just look at the younger generation, because I think they have a hard time right now. And I'm going to give it to them, because I do believe, like we talked about with the housing, do they think of a will? No. Do they think of life insurance? Probably not. Probably just their work, if they have it. They probably don't even know they have it at work. From there, what do you tell somebody that wants to get a house? Because that evolves. There you go, a mortgage. Now you got mortgage insurance. And then you're talking, wow, when you add all this stuff up, it's freaking crazy.
It is. And one of the biggest things that we tell people is don't overbuy a house, meaning don't buy something that is more than you can afford, because you've got to think about those rainy days in the future. So if somebody is my client, they're thinking about buying a house, I want them to absolutely have a fully funded emergency fund before they purchase the home. Because what happens,
like 6 months or a year or 6 months?
6 months.
6 months minimum. Because if you drain your emergency fund to buy a house and then your roof goes, you have an emergency, you're going to lose the house.
It's the same thing when you said when you're dying, you're dead. You don't need that life. I know what you're saying there. That makes sense.
Yep.
See, made me smart tonight after that. But, no, but it's the same thing. I like how you said that. You're going to show them in the beginning how many people you have to see this day in and day out, and listen, because I imagine the other spouse sometimes doesn't know about something. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't know you had this debt, or I didn't know you had this, or we didn't know. I bet that's just a total conversation too.
And that's something that we are super proud of, is we meet with couples. We're not just meeting with one or the other. And sometimes it's hard to have those conversations like, oh, I have this credit card over here, or I didn't pay my student loans for the last 2 years. Those are hard conversations to have, but they are so important for couples that want to move forward. Put everything on the table.
By the way, I got to tell you, I got this credit card that I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you haven't had the other credit card. But no, I can see tonight, and I definitely want to, do another show even, because we're at 45 minutes here, and I didn't even hit again my book, but I want to have you two back because I just think people need to hear it. They need to hear that. If you touch one person driving in a car, listen to a podcast saying, wow, I don't have a will, or I don't have this, that really makes you think, and for, like you said, just to reach out to you and you can talk, and the expense is not that much. And if you're there to help somebody, I look at it, I always look at younger generation and older generation, because it's just the money. It's when you get older, it's more expensive.
It is.
It just, even everything that you look at, it gets more expensive. But I want to thank you for coming on. And if you had to give Sarah, I'll let you, Sarah, then Greg. Sarah, if you had to give somebody out there some great advice about having a 401k or a Roth, what would that be?
Great advice surrounding the 401k and the Roth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say either or. I'd say work with a financial coach. Seriously, know exactly how it's going to benefit you and what the benefits are.
That makes total sense. And Greg?
Start now. A lot of people want to put things off, next year. Oh, when I'm 30, when I'm 40, right? I'll start thinking about this. Just start now, understand. And the basics of it is just at least understand how this stuff works. Understand what you're missing out on. Understand the importance of it. Understand how it can work for you or how it can work against you. Just get educated on it, right?
Good. And that's why I wish I'm going to tell a couple of friends to watch this, because I want to really learn more about those, the life insurances, the holes and everything, because you don't know. And they try to sell it to you. Insurance companies, they'll be like, oh, you just need the whole insurance. All right. Well, it makes total sense. Now I'm going to say, no, I talked to Sarah and Craig, but I understand what you're talking about now. I think the whole thing comes down to just educating everybody about a 401k, even at their work. I don't even think people understand what it is. Oh, 401k, I can't afford that. I always say you can't afford not to. Every raise that I get, raise I get, I put that in, because I'm living without it anyway. So if you give me 4%, 5% raise, that 4%, 5% is going to my 401k. It just makes total sense. I've done that the whole life. Just put it right in through there, and you don't really miss it. And when you open that envelope up, then when you're like, but you might not want to open up sometimes, because when everything goes higher, you'd be like, oh, wow. But, as you get older, see, I have an age thing, I think, when you get older, but it'll really grow. And I think you start thinking about that at age 50 and above. I'm
Absolutely.
Sure. And your things are. So please, everybody, reach out to Sarah and Greg right in Pennsylvania. And can you do life insurance policies and all that in different states? Wills, that doesn't matter.
We can. Yes.
They can reach. So this is on LinkedIn. So if anybody has any questions, we'll put some information. If you want to put in the comments, Sarah, you can put in there about how to get a hold of you, and right through there, and they can message and give you a call. But we'll say goodnight, and then I'll be back this week, everybody. And thank you. And we're going to do definitely a part 2. I'll talk to you right after the video here.